It was just kind of became the in thing to do. I don't think that I think the only shit that came out of the Valentine's Day Massacre was by the mobsters. That's when they went, oh man, because it was like, okay, we didn't want it quite this bad. You know, I mean, I don't think whoever even planned it. Well, obviously whoever planned it was expecting something, but I don't think they really expected it to go the way it did. And when anything attracts that much attention, it's like, okay, even we went too far this time. And I think the only shit wasn't from the public. The public knew what was going on. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. Like, I can't believe that there were 7 people massacred. You know, here. You know, it was big news, obviously, but I don't think it turned. I think the people that were involved in the mob or thought it was a cool thing to do still thought that. You know, I think law-abiding people really didn't like the mob. In fact, some of Pescenzi's relatives even were against the mob, but were very well respected by the mob. Yeah, even today it was crazy. Even when Nathan Leopold and Dick Loeb, they were child killers. They killed a 14-year-old kid. And the amount of fan letters that these guys got in prison was crazy. I mean, so you have a certain fascination with the bad boys, regardless of what type it is. And I think it was I don't think it was as romantic at the time. I think we think of it as more romantic, like they were, really flashy dressers and stuff like that. And we get these romantic images of big fancy ballrooms and whatnot. But when it came down to the actual nuts and bolts of it, it was pretty dirty and nasty. And it's kind of like some of the young guys that get involved with gangs today. It's the allure of easy money and kind of getting a reputation and being looked at as someone high up, and so a lot of, even today, people are being kind of, that's the way they recruit. So yeah, so I don't think the Valentine's Day Massacre had anything negative, other than by the gangsters themselves. I think the only people that were a little scared by that whole situation was the Capone gang. Like, oh crap, now we've attracted too much attention. Now maybe not even we have enough people in our back pocket to make this go away, although they kind of did. But probably
obviously,
rarely.
I was going to say, obviously we know about it nationally now. Did it become a national story pretty quick?
No, it was national. Yeah, it was national right away.
Yeah, it's just, you had murders going on all over the place, and then this thing happened. How does this one incident rank up there as far as mob hits all time?
No, I think it's got to be number one. I don't think that many mobsters were killed. I could be wrong, but killed in one place at one time. Mm-hmm. I think that was the largest number at one time. If Moran would have been there, it would have been 8. Yeah. Who knows how many if they would have waited a while. Yeah, but it just, the thing, I think it has to do with the date too. The date obviously helped popularize it and popularize it in the folklore and whatnot. St. Valentine's Day Massacre just sounds cool. And the fact that McGurn was killed 3 years later, almost to the day, February 15th, actually on your birthday, is when McGurn got gunned down.
So we have some non-news that has somehow found its way to the news recently, and you wrote a nice little story on it, I thought. I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk about it now, because I've been waiting to hear you talk about it. I love what you wrote, but I think it'll be even more interesting to hear you talk about it. The Cook County Medical Examiner's office,
sure.
Talking about how they found records. So I'll let you get into it.
Oh, sure. It's tough. I work, I do most of my work in Cook County, but I don't seem to be making any friends in Cook County, which is so far. So, I've kicked off the county sheriff, the mayor's office. I might as well go for the medical examiner's office too, because I'm kind of outspoken, and it kind of angered me in a way because, just to get into the medical examiner's office, for the people who are listening out, they may or may not know, they're kind of like a coroner's office. So most places have coroners, I think. And we used to have a coroner system until about 1970 something, and they got rid of it. But basically, they're in charge of investigating deaths that aren't considered natural. So if anything but a natural death occurs, then the medical examiner's office gets involved, which, is fine and dandy, and they do a heck of a job. I mean, they have so many, just to give them, credit, there are so many bodies coming to them, because not just people who are murdered, but traffic accidents, and I mean, it's like an assembly line, because I've been there on the inside of it and been there as they're doing autopsies and whatnot, and it is like an assembly line there. Literally, they've got, the last time I was there, they had about 10 metal tables, and each one of them was occupied all day long, and the autopsy took between 10 and 15 minutes apiece, and it was like an assembly line. It was crazy. But what they're in charge of is keeping track of all the records and filing all the reports and that kind of stuff. And especially before the 1970s, they had a coroner system, and the only difference is a medical examiner is a doctor, and a coroner is an elected official. Well, the coroner's records of the coroner's inquests were considered public information because they were held like a court case, the inquest. So any of that is subject to a Freedom of Information Act request, and they're required to provide that information to you. So what I use, I mean, obviously, these records go back until, probably 1871, but there's a lot of good family history information. There's, for the most part, when I was originally looking at the records, I was looking at for people that had relatives. They might be living out of state, and they said my relative was in a car accident in 1930 something, and I was just wondering if there's anything in the coroner's records that would give us some family history, and there would be. I mean, there's very detailed records about who the person was, assuming they identified them, and parental information, family information, address, occupation, blah 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 blah, and a lot of neat details about the incident that may or may not have been in the newspaper. So anyway, what you typically would do is file a request for a document, and everything is kept off-site. So basically, for years, I would put it in request, and I would never get anything back. And it just got really frustrating for years and years and years and years. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I would call and call and call. And finally, on one of the cases, they said, well, the warehouse is a mess, and we only have one person that goes out there once a week to the warehouse, and so it may take a while. It could take up to 6 months. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'll wait 6 months or whatever, and I called back. And when I called back, I said, I was just asking about the particular file I was looking for, and they said, well, how old are you? And I said, I'm 42. And they said, well, you'll probably get it when you're 82. And I'm like, are you serious? And they're like, yeah, there's no way we can get it to you, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I kind of gave up on them. I was like, this is ridiculous. And then I actually wrote letters to Tony Preckwinkle, who was the Cook County board president and stuff, because I'm thinking, I have people involved in historical research that'd be willing to volunteer to go into the warehouse and sort through things and organize it and make copies for people. And they could actually make money in the meantime instead of not filling any orders, which they're required by law to do anyway. In fact, the law is even more stringent now. Supposedly they have a certain number of days to comply, like 10 days to answer you, and they can only charge a certain amount for copies. Well, it wasn't until I got involved with the Grimes family when, we're still kind of looking into that. We've got a whole Facebook group on Barbara and Patricia Grimes, the unsolved murder from 1956 in Chicago. And I met with the brother of the girls, and he said, we never got a copy of the coroner's inquest. And I said, well, you should get one. And I said, just tell them who you are, tell them you're Jim Grimes and Barbara and Patricia were your sisters. It's a famous case. And, I mean, everyone in Chicago knows about the Grimes sisters case. Just tell them who you are and see what they say. So he wrote a letter and mailed it in, and they did respond, which I was completely shocked. And they said, yeah, we'll make copies of it. It'll be $1,200. And I just went, are you kidding me? $1,200? That's illegal. They can't do that. It's a violation of the Freedom of Information Act. So, and then I talked to someone there and I said, no, it's by statute. We have to charge $5 a page. $5 a page for a Xerox copy. And they're like, well, yeah, that's by statute. There's nothing we can do. I'm like, by statute? How could a statute go against the... So I did all the research. I'm like, darn, they got us again, because literally there's a statute that says they can charge $5 a page. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And And sure, you know, and they're like, well, you should hold a fundraiser, you know, so I mean, this is the family of the murdered girls that just want the copy of it. I mean, really, how much is involved in I mean, yeah, okay, it's 400 pages, but okay, how long does it take someone to copy the pages? And then, so anyway, I said, well, you know what? There's no way we're going to come up with the money. So, but by law, they have to let you review the file in the office. You know, you can't take it out with you or take the copies, but we can look at it and read it. So me and Jim Grimes and someone else went with, and we sat there, and they made us sit there with someone watching us so we couldn't take photographs and all this other stuff. And we took as many hand notes as we could. They only gave us 90 minutes to look over the 400 pages, so it wasn't a whole lot of time. And, of course, we didn't have the money, so all they're going to do is shred it after we leave. And we didn't actually get to see the original file on top of it. And then you get, well, how come we can't see the original file? It's, oh, it's too delicate. Like, too delicate, but you could slap it up on a copy machine? It's like, can't be that delicate. And, you know, it was just ridiculous. And then this article comes out, someone posted to my Chicago The Stranger Side group on Facebook, and it says, you know, like it was some great find that the medical examiner's office had come up with the autopsies from the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. It's like, well, that's your job. I mean, it's your job. You have one job to do, and that's keep track of the stuff, and let people in the public see it. And then you know, now they're like, well, we don't know how we're going to make it available to the public, you know, respecting the dead and all this other stuff. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's from 1929. It's like I just about lost my mind when I saw that article. I'm like, oh, congrats, you found something. So it's like the public library going, look, we found books. It's like, no, that's what you're supposed to have there. Especially that. I mean, of all the you're going to lose that, and you just found it. It's like, and they make it sound like, oh, we just found it in a box in the warehouse. Well, that's where it is. That's where you keep the stuff. I mean, I don't know. It just seemed really strange to me that they'd be like, this made the news. Like, look, the medical examiner's office found the records.
You know, funny you mentioned that, because going back to the whole thing about it's too delicate and, you know, you have to be sensitive with that, shouldn't they be in the hands of archivists at this point then? Because, you know, we did a show.
I made that suggestion. I made it, and it just goes on deaf ears. In fact, I get along really well with the guys at the Cook County Court Archives. I mean, those guys are wonderful. I mean, you go in there, the same, and it's the same warehouse. I didn't put this in the article, but it's the same warehouse. I mean, I know the guys at the archives, and they're full of crap. Our records are right next to theirs in the same warehouse. I'm there all the time. So the story they're giving you about it being a mess and everything, they said, no, we're in that same area. I see them all the time. So that's a bunch of BS. And you go request a record, you have it in a week, and it's the original document. And it's not $5 a page. And it is by statute. I mean, I will give them that. There is a public act that I looked up, and I referenced in the article that they can, according to the state law, charge $5 per page, which is in direct conflict with the Freedom of Information Act, other than the fact that they put in a little loophole in the Freedom of Information Act that says unless covered in another statute. You know, so in other words, they can charge whatever they want as long as they have their own little statute about how much they can charge. So it's Chicago politics all over again. And plus, I'm sure there's one or two people there that's their job, and they're given that job as part of a political deal. And so if they were to give it to volunteers and actually help the county make money, then two of their cronies or whatever they got the job would probably lose the job. So, yeah, so.
So I'm just trying to understand this from a logical standpoint, you know, because I
don't even try it. No, stop. You need to stop because see, people in Cook County have given up the idea of looking at things from a logical standpoint because it just frustrates you, and so you just go, okay, because you will drive yourself nuts or into rehab trying to infuse logic into anything.
Yeah, I drink enough. I don't need to drink anymore. Fair enough.
If you moved to Cook County, your liver would be shot.
How frustrating is that for you in terms of what some of the things that you do and what you've done? I mean, is it hard to work with a system that isn't always on your side?
There's way. I mean, you kind of like. I mean, if you get to know people.